Everyone, Alex Wilson here, accredited mental health social worker and owner of Mindful Recovery Services in Avoca Beach. So today's vlog, I'm going to be talking a little bit about motivation to get help and this idea that in order to get good psychological help, you have to be 100% motivated and ready for change. This is an idea that's sort of out there and that I often hear people say, oh, they're not ready for help yet, or, they're not motivated enough to get help. And I actually have a different take on it. Because I work with a DBT therapy model, we who do DBT really work with ambivalence. So ambivalence meaning I kind of want to change, but I kind of don't, right? So I see a lot of people who some of them wants to change, but it might only be like, I don't know, 10%, sometimes less than that. Some days it might be like 1%, but the other part of them doesn't really want to change. I sometimes see young people that are here because their parents get them to come here, or they've been in trouble at the school and they say they should come, but they're not really that motivated for change. And, some people might say, well, you can't help them. And I'm going to disagree with that. I actually think that working with ambivalence and working with that, I'm not really sure if I want to change, or maybe I'm pretty sure I don't want to change. I think we can definitely work with that. So a little more about that, if somebody comes to me and they say, look, everybody else has a problem with what I'm doing, or everybody else tells me that there's an issue with my mental health, then, we'd start to sort of explore that. What are the problems that other people are identifying? And do these actually cause problems for the person? And on the surface, it might seem like, no, they don't cause that many problems. But when we dig down, we might find that there are more problems that we can identify. We also talk about how there's always a trade-off, and if you've watched my videos about dialectics, we talk a lot about how there's always a trade-off. You give something up and you get something in return, right? And vice versa. So, we sometimes, when we're dealing with ambivalence, so if I have a client who says, oh, only 2% of me really wants to change, only 2% of me wants to stop self-harming, the rest of me doesn't really want to, we say, cool, that's fine. So let's really explore the trade-off. So you want to hold on to the self-harm, you want to keep doing that. What are you getting out of that? You're obviously getting something out of it, right? Something that feels good. And usually that something is, it solves my short-term distress problem, right? And then we start to look at, cool, okay, but what are you giving up? So what is the downside? What is the cost? You get short-term relief, but what are you giving up? And as we start to explore that, we start to notice that what we're actually giving up is long-term emotional resilience, okay? And when we start to identify that, we start to see that's a pretty big cost. And we then start to sort of say, how's that working? Is that getting rid of your distress permanently? And people will say, no, I actually feel worse than I did a year ago. And I'll say, interesting. Okay, so things are getting worse, but this strategy, this short-term strategy, if we're talking about self-harm, if that's working so well for you, why are you feeling worse, right? And then I'll start to introduce concepts about, when we get the short-term relief, what we give up is long-term resilience. And that's really the formula. If we want long-term emotional resilience and to be able to ride out waves of distress, we have to be willing to give up some of the short-term quick fixes, right? Most people I know, if you talk to them enough about it, they want long-term emotional resilience, right? They don't want all these ups and downs. They don't want to feel like they're on a roller coaster of emotion. They want to feel like they are in control of their life and they get to decide what they do, not their emotions. So when we unpack it, we start to move that ambivalence, and slowly but surely we can move people and we can move with people towards, all right, maybe I'm more like 40-50 now, right? And maybe then I'm 60-40. We start to build that understanding of, actually, if I want this long-term outcome, then this is some of the stuff I might need to look at. But we've got to meet people where they are, and everybody moves at their own pace. But if you're not ready to change, that doesn't mean you shouldn't come to therapy. Or if you know somebody who doesn't seem ready for change, still encourage them to come, because that's something that we can work with. All right. Even just building up a good relationship, maybe they come for a couple of sessions, they're like, nah, I don't want to do this right now. But if they have a good experience, they're more likely to come back in 6 months or a year from now. And that's really positive. Just plant the seeds sometimes. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions about ambivalence, or if you are struggling to help somebody who's like, saying they don't need or want help, get in touch. I'm happy to answer questions about this. All right. I hope you're having a great day as always. Bye.